right, so today we're doing a deep dive on turpentine.
Turpentine, huh? Interesting.
I know, right? It's not exactly the first thing that springs to mind when you think medicine cabinet.
More like paint thinner, right?
Exactly. But here's the thing. Turpentine has a surprisingly long history of medicinal use.
Oh, absolutely. It goes way back. Ancient civilizations, traditional medicine practices, you name it. Turpentine pops up all over the place.
Like way back.
Way back. Think ancient Greece. We're talking Hippocrates himself, the father of medicine. He recommended turpentine for all sorts of things, particularly respiratory issues.
Wow, so turpentine's got some serious historical street cred. Who knew?
Right. It's not just ancient history either. Fast forward a few centuries to 19th century America, and you'd find turpentine in all kinds of pharmaceutical products.
Seriously? Like...
Oh, you name it. There's this one guy, a real showman, called himself King of Pain. He had this whole act where he'd peddle his miracle turpentine elixir, claimed it could cure everything under the sun.
No way. Okay, that's both hilarious and a little bit terrifying.
Right. Makes you wonder about the efficacy of some of those old-timey remedies.
You know what else I found fascinating? Those early European settlers in America, they actually learned a lot about turpentine from Native Americans.
Oh, yeah. Native American tribes had been using turpentine, which comes from pine trees, for ages. They were way ahead of the game when it came to understanding the medicinal properties of plants.
It's like a whole other side to colonization that we don't always hear about, the exchange of knowledge about traditional medicine and healing practices.
Exactly. It really highlights how much we can learn from different cultures and their approaches to health. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked here. Turpentine, it's got a fascinating history.
For sure. But enough about history for now. Let's talk about what actually makes this stuff tick.
So, turpentine, huh? It's all about these things called terpenes.
Terpenes, okay, I've heard of those. Aren't they like in essential oils and stuff?
Yeah, exactly. They're organic compounds, and they're basically responsible for the aromas of a lot of plants.
So like that piney smell of turpentine, that's terpenes.
Exactly. But here's the thing about terpenes. They don't just smell. They actually have all sorts of effects on the body. And get this, turpentine has a whole bunch of different ones.
Oh, really? Like, fill me in.
Okay, so the most abundant terpene in turpentine is called alpha-pine. And get this, it's known for its anti-inflammatory properties.
Anti-inflammatory, so it's like ibuprofen, but from a pine tree.
Well, not exactly like ibuprofen, but yeah, alpha-pine basically helps to calm down inflammation in the body.
Yeah.
It's like when you get a cut and the area around it gets red and swollen. That's inflammation.
Right. And so the alpha-pine is calming that down.
Exactly. Then there's beta-pine, another big one in turpentine. And this one's really interesting. Studies have shown that beta-pine has some pretty strong antimicrobial properties.
Antimicrobial. So it's like fighting off germs and stuff.
Yeah, you got it. Particularly bacteria and fungi. So that's kind of cool. And last but not least, we've got limone in turpentine.
Limone. Wait, is that like the lemon thing?
Yep. You got a good nose. You find it in lemons and other citrus fruits. And it's actually being studied for its potential mood-boosting effects.
No way. So it's like aromatherapy and medicine all rolled into one.
Kind of, yeah. There's a lot of research still being done, but it's definitely an area of interest for scientists.
Right.
But here's the thing. While you can find these terpenes in other plants and essential oils, turpentine is unique because of the specific combination and concentration of these compounds.
Okay, so it's like the special sauce is in the blend.
Exactly. You got it.
Okay, so walk me through this. How do we actually get turpentine? Like, how do you go from a pine tree to this potent liquid?
Well, it starts with that sticky resin you see oozing out of pine trees. You ever seen that?
Yeah, definitely. It's like super sticky.
Yeah, exactly. So turpentine is actually just one component of that resin. And to get it out, they use a process called steam distillation.
Steam distillation? I've heard of that, but I'm a little fuzzy on the details. How does that work again?
Basically, they use steam to separate the turpentine from the rest of the resin. Imagine steam rising through a big vat of pine needles, pulling out those aromatic oils.
Gotcha. So it's like the steam is carrying away all the good stuff.
Exactly. And then when the steam cools down, the turpentine separates out from the water. Pretty neat, huh?
Yeah, that's really cool. So, you might think, oh, turpentine comes from trees. It must be harmless, right? But you'd be wrong. Turpentine is actually pretty potent stuff. Even though it comes from a natural source, it can be toxic if it's not used carefully. Okay, good to know. It's a good reminder that natural doesn't always equal safe. So we've talked about the terpenes in turpentine and how they might be linked to some of its traditional uses. But what does the science actually say? Are there any proven health benefits to turpentine? So turpentine, miracle cure, or a toxic time bomb? What's the verdict?
Well, it's not quite that black and white. Like with a lot of traditional remedies, the science is playing catch up. There's anecdotal evidence galore. When it comes to hard data, it's a bit of a mixed bag.
Okay, so let's dig into the evidence, or lack thereof. We've got to talk about the whole breathing thing. People have been using turpentine for respiratory issues forever.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Steam inhalation with turpentine was the go-to for generations dealing with coughs, congestion, you name it.
My grandpa used to swear by it. Said a little turpentine in a pot of boiling water worked wonders for a stuffy nose.
It's funny how those home remedies get passed down. You know, there might be something to it. Turpentine can act as an expectorant.
An expectorant, meaning?
It basically helps loosen up the mucus in your airways, making it easier to cough up. So, in theory, it can help you breathe a bit easier.
Okay, so it kind of makes sense. But are there any actual studies to back this up?
That's where things get a little tricky. There haven't been a ton of rigorous scientific studies on turpentine and respiratory health, at least not enough to draw any definitive conclusions.
Got it. So jury's still out on that one. What about skin conditions? I read some pretty interesting stuff about turpentine being used as an antiseptic and even for things like eczema.
Right, so turpentine does have antiseptic properties.
Yeah.
Those terpenes we talked about, particularly beta pine, they're pretty good at tackling bacteria and fungi.
Makes sense.
So historically, people used it topically on minor cuts, scrapes, things like that. And there's some early evidence suggesting it might actually help with wound healing. There was this study in 2018 looked at turpentine ointment on infected wounds in rats, and it actually showed some promising results.
Rats, huh?
Yeah.
Well, that's a start, I guess.
Exactly. But it's just one study, and we need a lot more research, especially in humans, before we can start making any recommendations. Plus, even if turpentine does have some benefits for wound healing, we have to remember there are so many safer, more effective options available today.
Right, so maybe not the best idea to ditch the Neosporin just yet.
Probably not. All right, now the last thing I wanted to touch on, pain relief. Turpentine has a long history of use for muscle aches, joint pain, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I remember my grandpa used to rub some concoction on his knees that smelled suspiciously like turpentine. He swore it helped with his arthritis.
It wouldn't surprise me. Turpentine was a common ingredient in old school liniments and ointments for sore muscles and joints. And, you know, there might be something to it. Turpentine is a counter-irritant.
Counter-irritant. Okay, break that down for me.
So basically it means it creates this kind of warming or tingling sensation on your skin, which can temporarily distract you from the pain that's deeper down.
Ah, so it's like tricking your body into focusing on the tingling instead of the ache.
Exactly. But here's the thing, and I can't stress this enough. Putting turpentine directly on your skin can be really risky. We're talking irritation, redness, even chemical burns in some cases. It's potent stuff. So while it might provide some temporary pain relief, it's just not worth the risk when there are so many other safe and effective options out there.
So bottom line, it sounds like turpentine's got a bit of a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing going on.
That's a great way to put it. It's got this fascinating history, and there might be some real medicinal benefits there. But it's also got this dark side with the potential for some nasty side effects.
Well, that was fascinating. Turpentine, it's a lot more complex than meets the eye, that's for sure. We've gone from ancient remedies to modern science and everything in between. Big thanks to our expert for breaking it all down for us. And to our listeners, what do you think? Have you had any experiences with turpentine, good or bad? Head over to our social media pages and let us know. Until next time, stay curious, friends.